Hello and welcome to the Jank Bank. My name is Brad and I'll be your host as we explore fun, unusual, and unique commander decks that can still hold their own and win games. As a quick disclaimer, these decks are tuned to my own personal budget and meta, so feel free to make changes as necessary. Today's deck is an attempt at mono white I'm calling nEVRA Gonna Give You Up. The commander for this deck is nEVRA Halcyon Witness, a 4/4 avatar creature with lifelink for 4 and 2 white that allows us to pay 4 mana to switch our life total with its power. This ability essentially allows us to set our life total to 4, set nEVRA's power to 40, and then attack and gain 40 life. In this deck, we're going to be using this ability to make ourselves very hard to kill, while also maintaining a big threat on the board. So let's take a look at how we're going to accomplish this, starting with Blackblade Reforged, which gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each land we control. Here's an example of how this works with nEVRA. Say we have 10 lands, Blackblade Reforged, and nEVRA on the battlefield. When we swap our life total with nEVRA's power becomes 40 plus 10 from the Blackblade for a total of 50, and our life total becomes 14. Next, we have Sure Strike Trident, which gives the equipped creature first strike, and tap an unequipped Sure Strike Trident. This creature deals damage equal to its power to target player. This card, unanswered, is a death sentence for our opponents. Giving nEVRA first strike is going to make it an insurmountable blocker, and we can kill an opponent at instant speed. We also have Cradle of Vitality, which lets us pay 1 and a white whenever we gain life to put a number of +1/+1 counters on a creature equal to the life we gained. Sunbond, which gives the enchanted creature, whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature. And Armored Ascension, which gives the enchanted creature flying and +1/+1 for each planes we control. Giving nEVRA some form of evasion is a must in this deck if we want our damage to go through. So let's take a look at how to avoid pesky blockers, starting with Suspicious Bookcase, which we can pay 3 and tap to make a creature unblockable, and Whisper Silk Cloak, which gives the equipped creature unblockable and Shroud. Whisper Silk Cloak, like many other cards in this deck, serves a dual purpose, in this case providing both evasion and protection. Protecting nEVRA is the key to making sure we don't get blown out when our life total is at its lowest. So other ways we can protect it are Swiftfoot Boots, which give the equipped creature hexproof and haste, Lightning Greaves, which give the equipped creature Shroud and haste, and Grand Abolisher, which prevents opponents from casting spells or activating abilities of creatures, artifacts, and enchantments during our turn. Next, we have Giver of Runes, which we can tap to give another creature we control protection from colorless or the color of our choice until end of turn. Dawn Charm lets us choose between preventing all combat damage that would be dealt this turn, regenerating a creature, or countering a spell that targets us. An Unbreakable Formation, which gives all of our creatures indestructible, and if we cast it during our main phase, those creatures also get a +1/+1 counter and gain vigilance until end of turn. This is going to complete what I like to call our nEVRA package, but if all else fails, we do have a few more ways to prevent our untimely demise, beginning with Worship, which says if we control a creature, damage that would reduce our life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. Gideon of the Trials, which can prevent all damage target permanent would deal until our next turn, become a 4/4 indestructible soldier until end of turn, or most importantly, create an emblem that says as long as we control a Gideon Planeswalker, we can't lose the game and our opponents can't win the game. And Angel's Grace has Split Second and says until end of turn we can't lose the game and our opponents can't win the game, and any damage that would reduce our life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. Lastly, we have Angel of Grace, which has Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, until end of turn, any damage that would reduce our life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. We can also pay 4 and 2 white and exile it from our graveyard to gain 10 life. And Platinum Angel simply says we can't lose the game and our opponents can't win the game. Now, one of the most important aspects of this deck is gaining life. We need to keep our life total nice and high to make sure nEVRA can kill our opponents and to prevent us from dying on the backswing. So next, we have Soul's Attendant, which says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, we gain 1 life. Soul Warden, which does the same. And Serra Ascendant, which has lifelink, and as long as we have 30 or more life, gets +5/+5 and flying. At the beginning of our end step, Wall of Reverence lets us gain life equal to the power of target creature we control. And Rock's Faithmender has lifelink and says whenever we would gain life, we gain twice that much life instead. Next, we're going to work on building up our board state, starting with Johnny's Pridemate, which gets a +1/+1 counter whenever we gain life. Resplendent Angel, which has flying and says at the beginning of each end step, if we gain 5 or more life that turn, we make a 4/4 Angel token with flying and vigilance. We can also pay 3 and 3 white to give Resplendent Angel +2/+2 and lifelink until end of turn. An Angelic Accord creates a flying 4/4 Angel at the beginning of each end step if we gain 4 or more life that turn. Next, we have Crested Sunmare, which gives our other horses indestructible, and at the beginning of each end step, if we gain life this turn, we create a 5/5 horse token. And Heliod, God of the Sun, which is indestructible, and gives our other creatures vigilance. We can also pay 2 and 2 white to create a 2/1 Cleric Enchantment creature token. Lastly, we have just a few failsafes with Elixir of Immortality, which we can pay 2 and tap to gain 5 life, and shuffle it and our graveyard back into our library. Sun Titan, which has vigilance, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, we may return a permanent with CMC 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. And Aetherflux Reservoir, which says whenever we cast a spell, we gain 1 life for each spell we cast that turn, and we can also pay 50 life to deal 50 damage to target creature or player. Now the overall curve for this deck is fairly low, but we do need a healthy amount of mana for Evra's ability. So let's check out how we're going to get it with the ramp. First, we have Soul Ring, which costs 1 and taps for 2. Pristine Talisman, which we can tap to add a colorless mana and gain a life. And Pearl Medallion, which reduces the cost of all of our white spells by 1. Next, we have Burnished Heart, which we can pay 3 and sacrifice to search our library for 2 basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. And Solemn Simulacrum, which lets us search our library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped when it enters the battlefield, and lets us draw a card when it dies. We also have Sword of the Animus, which gives the equipped creature +1/+1, and whenever this creature attacks, we can search our library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. And Oreskos Explorer, which lets us search our library for a number of planes equal to the number of opponents with more lands in play than us and put them into our hand. Lastly, we have Land Tax, which says at the beginning of our upkeep, if an opponent has more lands than us, we may search our library for up to 3 basic lands and put them into our hand. Smothering Tithe, which lets us create a treasure whenever an opponent draws a card, unless they pay 2 mana. And Cage Sun, which is going to give all of our white creatures +1/+1, and whenever we tap a Plains for mana, we add an additional mana. Now let's take a look at how we're going to keep our hand nice and full with Draw Power. Starting things off, we have Mind Stone, Hedron Archive, and Dreamstone Hedron, each of which tap for 1, 2, or 3 mana respectively, and let us pay that much mana, tap and sacrifice them to draw that many cards. Next, we have Endless Atlas, which we can pay 2 and tap to draw a card as long as we control 3 or more lands with the same name. Key to the City, which we can tap and discard a card to give a creature unblockable until end of turn. We can also pay 2 to draw a card whenever it becomes untapped. And Azur's Gateway, which lets us pay 1 and tap it to exile a card from our hand and draw a card. Then, if we have exiled 5 cards with different CMCs, it flips into Sanctum of the Sun, a land that taps for X mana of any color, where X is our life total. Now, odds are this card is not going to flip, but if it ever does, we're not going to have any mana worries for the rest of the game. Next is Farsight Mask, which lets us draw a card whenever a source an opponent controls deals damage to us as long as it's untapped. And Mind's Eye, which says whenever an opponent draws a card, we may pay 1 to draw a card as well. Lastly, we have Dawn of Hope, which lets us pay 2 whenever we gain life to draw a card, and also lets us pay 3 and a white to create a 1/1 soldier with lifelink. And Well of Lost Dreams says whenever we gain life, we may pay X, where X is equal to or less than the amount of life we gained, in order to draw that many cards. Nothing left to do now but take out our opponent's threats with the removal. Path to Exile lets us exile a creature, and then its controller may search their library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Return to Dust lets us exile an artifact or enchantment at instant speed, or 2 if we play it during our main phase. And Swords to Plowshares, which exiles target creature, and then its controller gains life equal to its power. This card can also be used defensively in this deck by playing it on our own commander in response to our opponent's removal. Next, we have Darksteel Mutation, which turns the enchanted creature into an indestructible 0/1 bug with no other abilities, card types, or creature types. And Oblivion Ring, which exiles enchanted permanent until it leaves the battlefield. Moving on to board wipes, we have Terminus, which puts all creatures on the bottom of their owner's libraries and has a miracle cost of 1. Martial Coup, which we can pay X and 2 white into to create X 1/1 soldier tokens, and if X is 5 or more, it destroys all other creatures. And Fumigate, which destroys all creatures, and we gain life for each creature destroyed. Finally, we have Cleansing Nova, which lets us choose between destroying all creatures or all artifacts and enchantments. And Austere Command, which lets us choose 2 of the following options: destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with CMC 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with CMC 4 or greater. And that's going to do it for the spells in this deck, so let's take a look at the lands that are going to help us cast them. Arch of Araska taps for a colorless, and we can also pay 5 and tap it to draw a card if we have the City's Blessing. Rogue's Passage also taps for a colorless, or we can pay 4 and tap it to give a creature unblockable until end of turn. And Emeria the Sky Ruin enters tapped, taps for a single white mana, and at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control 7 or more planes, lets us return a creature from our graveyard to the battlefield. Finishing things up, we have 35 basic planes. And that's going to do it for this week's deck, but I really want to hear what you think of it, so please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest episodes. You can also follow us on social media to see how the next video is coming along, links to which are in the description below. If you would like to support the channel directly, there's also a link to our Patreon in the description. Being a patron has a lot of benefits, including early looks at the next episode, your name in the credits, and even a tier where you get a deck tech based on your own idea. I'd also like to say a quick thank you to everyone who's subscribed and left feedback so far, and a very big thanks to our patron, Walt and Shelby Rollins. And with that, we bring the show to a close. See you next time, guys, and stay janky. The Jank Bank is part of the Creators Quarters community. For more great Magic content, click the playlist link at the top right.